we've already pre-mixed our stuff, so the first step is to flood the floor. So I'm going to take my mop and I'm going to flood the floor with very wet mixer solution. Now, the only reason you would not flood it super wet is if you had a situation where tiles might pop up. Talk to the building superintendent or the facility manager to see if there is a risk of the tiles popping up if they get too wet. In that situation, you would not want to flood it super wet. So we don't have that problem here, so we're flooding the floor very, very wet. Okay, again, flooding would be, I did not wring my mop out, just got it wet and threw the water on the floor. The only time you would not flood the floor, again, is if you have a risk of tiles popping out or if you have electrical outlets in the floor, as we have right here. Electrical outlets, so I need to be careful as I flood around this so that I don't see a problem there. Okay, the second step to stripping and refinishing floors is to use a towel stripping pad and a swing machine, as we call it. And now that my floor is wet and the solution is worked, I'm giving it time to work. Now I'm going to scrub the floor in a pattern to ensure that I'm not missing spots. One of the most important things that we like to do is take the circumference of the circle of this machine. If I make a pass this way, I want to overlap at least half of the machine as I pass back and work slowly back and forth in that way, so that I can be assured that I'm not leaving big gaps in my floor. I'll use this blue and tan to demonstrate how we overlap. I'm making a pass of all blue, coming back in half tan, half blue. And then my next pass is going to be overlapping just a little bit the length of my circle of the machine and slowly work back and forth like that so that I can be absolutely sure I'm not leaving big areas that's not going to be scrubbed properly. Okay, the next step, once I've stripped the floors, is to use a wet dry vac and pick up the solution. Make sure you watch the corners and you pick the corners up and clean them up very, very well to give a professional look to the floors. Okay, now I have this section of floor stripped. I've already used my wet dry vac to pick up all the solution. So the third step is to take a clean mop with clean mop water and do a rinse of the floor. It's very important to get all of the stripper, or as much of it as possible, off of the floor, because the wax will not adhere to the floor if there's still stripper residue in it. So it has to be cleaned and rinsed very, very well. And I'm going to do that now. When I mop the floors, I want to make sure I'm cleaning my corners very, very well. Sometimes you have to get down and get those corners really good with the hand in the mop, with the hand in the mop. But I'm going to mop it very, very well, a little wet. Sometimes it'll take 2 to 3 moppings to get it cleaned and rinsed out well. Now that you have used the wet dry vac to pick up all your solution, and we mopped with clean water to get all the debris and chemicals off the floor, rinsed it well, mopped it again. It's called a tight mop, where you really mop hard into the corners. Pick up something here. to make sure all your corners, wall to wall, is fully mopped. Now we're going to put the first coat of sealer, and this step is just repeated with wax. So we call pouring a bead of wax so that you can work it into the floor evenly, and more importantly, do it in a way where you're not missing spots. You have to make sure there's no lines or holes in your wax, but it's uniformly spread out over the whole floor. So I'm going to pour my bead now. So that's bead of wax being poured. I'm going to take my applicator. Only thing I want to talk about here is the correct mop, dust mop, microfiber, either or. The candy stripe like this is the only ones for laying down wax. Cotton mop heads do much of the wax, so you have to use this synthetic applicator with blue and white candy stripe. All of them are. Now that I've poured my bead, I'm going to slowly, methodically work it in. I want to get it wall to wall. If you notice, the wax looks like milk. And as it dries, it gets clear. If there is a white, milky residue or film on your floor, then that just means that you're putting your wax on really thick versus putting it on very thin. So that's laying on one coat of wax. By rule, we put 2 coats of sealer, which is basically a very thin wax, and then we put 2 to 4 coats of a more durable wax on top of sealer to protect the floor and give it that wet look all the time. These are the most difficult spots. No glare, can't see a stinking thing.
Good.
You're gonna edit this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna put your dancing in there though.
You got that on?
Yeah. All right.